know they're going back and forth?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they would matter. If he wants to make some money, Floyd want to make some money.
It's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. He make no sense for me. It's not my what I'm looking at right now.
How many of those shots from Francis can you take? Tyson Fury, if you're talking clean, Tyson Fury only took one. Everything else, Tyson was able to roll with. Big Francis only had to hit him one time. Like, that's a compelling story, in my opinion.
Mike Tyson said that the matchup between Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou might not be the most balanced or logical fight, but it would still attract massive attention and generate huge revenue. He mentioned that the curiosity around who would win makes it an exciting spectacle. Tyson reportedly believes that the unpredictable nature of this fight would easily draw fans from both the boxing and MMA worlds.
I know you're such a big MMA fan. You know, I've been to UFC fights and I see you sitting octagon side. I can't help but wonder if you had gotten into MMA as a young man, as a teenager, instead of boxing, how do you think your career would have went, Mike?
Hey, I had no idea, but I'm really enthused about the MMA, you know, because not thinking, I had no idea that Rafael, who's from a background of MMA, would know so much about boxing. I had no idea, you know, only thing I know about great boxing is the great Ed Joffa, who was a legendary boxer who happened to be Brazilian, but never knowing, not being conscious that he would know that much about boxing.
Do you think you could have learned all the wrestling moves and the takedown defense and could have been a champion in something like the UFC?
I could have done all that stuff. But once someone stepped on my foot, I would have tapped out. My feet are my weak spot.
Francis Ngannou himself says that even offering him a fight with Jake Paul is a complete disrespect to his name and legacy. He explains that Jake hasn't earned the right to share a ring with someone who's been at the top of combat sports. Ngannou adds that this kind of offer is not only insulting, but also shows how far entertainment has drifted from real fighting.
So we think about you to fight Jake to replace Javante. I'm like, who's Jake? You know, like, I was so confused, you know, like, I wasn't expecting that at all. And he said, yeah, Jake Paul, you know, he's fighting. And I'm like, no, bro, come on. Don't, don't disrespect me like that. And then they even say like, they even come out after and say, and what if the number are good? He sent out some number. I'm like, it's not about the number. If it was about the number, we could have started talk. I would have tell you, I'm not just interested. He make no sense for me. It's not my
Shah Sonnen reacts to Jake Paul possibly fighting Francis Ngannou with both amusement and curiosity. He says this would be a fascinating matchup, not because it's competitive, but because it would show how durable Jake really is. Sonnen jokes that Tyson Fury, one of the toughest heavyweight champions in the world, was dropped by just one clean shot from Ngannou. If Fury, who outweighs Jake and has years of experience in heavyweight boxing, could barely survive Ngannou's power, then Jake might be in serious danger. Sonnen adds that Jake's confidence and willingness to take on fighters far above his level is entertaining. But facing someone like Francis is an entirely different story. He emphasizes that Jake doesn't have the size, power, or chin of Tyson Fury. And if Fury could only take one punch, it's hard to imagine Jake taking even that.
Just tells this story that Nikista's offering him the fight, but he's just not hearing it that way. Like, all right, you said you need help, and you called me, and I'm happy to help you, but you know what is it that I can do? So when Francis finally realizes it, he not only says no, he says he was offended. He said, Jake, you want me to bite Jake? Jake who? I said, Jake Paul. He said, that makes no sense. That's the last thing I would want to do right now. It's the last thing that I'm looking for. And all right. Now, that is a good and comical story. And I think that Jake Paul deserves a lot of credit for that. I would have really liked if that match would have gotten booked. I mean, I think that would just solve so many problems from a storyline perspective. And there's this story going on out there that and it has to do with courage. Now, how you ever question a combat athlete's courage, I think, is hard. How you ever question a boxer's courage, right? Where you've only got two things you can do, and they're both involve bludgeoning. You can't even grab a hold of the guy or try to squeeze him. You can only bludgeon and be bludgeoned back. I think you're got an uphill battle to question somebody. But they have been very effective in doing just that to Jake. Hey, you start with this NBA guy, and then even those MMA guys, they're not boxers. And then when you got around to the boxers, but they weren't current boxers. Then when you get around to the current boxers, they're not big enough boxers. And I just loved it. When I heard that Francis Ngannou might be going against Jake, I loved it. I mean, what's that going to look like? How many of those shots from Francis can you take? Tyson Fury, if you're talking clean, Tyson Fury only took one. Everything else, Tyson was able to roll with. Big Francis only had to hit him one time. Like, that's a compelling.
Francis Ngannou is not only heavier, but also vastly more powerful than anyone Jake Paul has ever faced. While Gervonta Davis is a lightweight fighter with explosive speed and timing, Ngannou is a heavyweight built on raw strength and knockout force. Analysts point out that if Jake truly wants to face Francis, he must completely rebuild his training camp. This means not only increasing his muscle mass, but also preparing his body to absorb punches from a man who weighs over 260 pounds. Jake would have to adjust everything from footwork and endurance drills to his sparring sessions. Fighting a lightweight requires sharp reflexes and movement, but fighting a heavyweight like Ngannou requires durability, balance, and raw strength. Experts say Jake cannot treat this as another influencer boxing event. He would need months of specialized preparation under top boxing coaches.
Unique. It would be something incredible. It's the same reason that I would be intrigued by a Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, although I would never advise Jake Paul to take a Anthony Joshua fight. I wouldn't advise him to take a Francis Ngannou fight either, because as much as Anthony is far better, which we saw when they actually fought, Joshua slept Francis Ngannou quicker than me after 2 melatonin. I mean, it was quick, fast, in a hurry, completely dominant. But we also saw Francis Ngannou go toe-to-toe with the heavyweight champion of the world at that time. Yes, he was out of shape. We understand that. But Tyson Fury on that night got the shock of his life when Francis Ngannou not only went toe-to-toe, but put him down and danced on him. To this day, I think that fight could have gone Francis's way. Point being, there are levels to this shit. Not just in boxing, but in combat in general. And the size difference Francis would have over Jake would be incredible, but it would have been a great event. And a lot of people would have tuned in. Francis, though, is saying that's not happening.
How can they go from like Gervonta Davis to Francis Ngannou? Like, I mean, Gervonta Davis is a fantastic boxer, but and is a one-shot knockout artist. But come on, like the weight different and everything, it make no sense.
It's a good point. I mean, obviously, Francis is right about the weight difference, but it's a good point in general for what do you do next? Jake has sparred guys like Shakur Stevenson, Ray Ford, Montana Love to try to prepare for Tank Davis. And even if you book this fight on December 12th or December 19th, that's still a completely different fight than you were going into. Completely different matchup, size-wise, skill-wise, the things that you're going to need to even try to compete if it's someone like a Francis Ngannou or even an Andre Ward or whoever else, not just the fight style's different.
Boxing analyst and former champion Tim Bradley reveals that the cancellation of the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight affected more than just the two fighters. According to Bradley, promoters, broadcasters, event organizers, and marketing partners all suffered financial losses due to the sudden end of the deal. The fight was expected to generate millions through pay-per-view sales and sponsorships. Bradley explains that Tank's legal issues and ongoing controversies forced networks and sponsors to back away, fearing damage to their brand reputations. Everyone involved had already spent money on promotion, production planning, and logistics, and now those investments are gone. Bradley says this situation exposes how fragile the business side of boxing can be. When a fighter's image gets tarnished, everyone who invested in the event ends up paying the price.
Tank, let's get on Tank real quick. You gotta be the dumbest dude, in the history of boxing, bro. $40 million, dog, down the drain. You gotta be the dumbest dude I've ever seen in the history of boxing, bro. Seriously. I'm like, $40 million, bro. Wealth. Literally wealth, bro. Going down the drain. I don't understand it. I can't make the. I don't understand it. But I'll tell you this. You know, MVP promotions, whatever the hell y'all call it, most valuable promotions, shit, more like rookie promotions. Yeah, more like rookie promotions. You didn't know what you were dealing with. You had no clue. This has always been down Tank's alley, man. Now, let me just say one thing. You know, you innocent until proven guilty. Ain't no charges been pending on Tank at all. You know, but I'm just saying, this has always came up within the last few fights of Tank's career. Yeah, it has. And MVP, more like RP, rookie promotions, yeah, y'all should have had a backup plan. You should have had a backup fighter. Yup. You live and you learn. Oh, absolutely. You live and you learn. You should have had a plan B, just in case this man, Tank Davis, don't show up. Yeah. That's what you should have done. Now you're looking like idiots. You know, I heard through the grapevine the joint wasn't even selling. Yeah, because everybody's tired of your bull crap, Jake Paul. Yeah, everybody's tired of that. When nobody's...
Heavyweight champion discusses the absurdity of Jake Paul calling out Francis Ngannou. He argues that boxing and MMA are two completely different sports, requiring different skills, timing, and mental approaches. Cormier points out that Jake has never fought a professional boxer of real experience. Most of his opponents have been MMA fighters, celebrities, or retired athletes. Now Jake wants to face Ngannou, who despite being an MMA fighter, just went toe-to-toe with Tyson Fury and nearly beat him in a boxing ring. Cormier questions Jake's motives, suggesting it's more about publicity than genuine competition. He adds that Jake underestimates what it takes to fight a heavyweight who can punch through gloves. In MMA, Ngannou's power is legendary, but in boxing, it becomes even more concentrated. Cormier warns that if Jake enters the ring with Francis without understanding the difference between MMA striking and boxing defense, it could be a very short night for him. Right.
Boxing is much different than mixed martial arts. The target audience might be the same, but the demographics different. The places where people are brought up are different. There's bigger entourages in boxing. It's just a different world in boxing. We've known that from the very beginning. We know that Gervonta Davis was not going to just play to Jake Paul's rules. I still don't know exactly why this thing is falling apart, but it is falling apart bad. It is bursting at the seams. We are almost exactly where we should have never started. This should have never gotten started, but it did. But we are almost now exactly where we need to be in the fight, and that's it being off. It being off. So, the CEO of Most Valuable Productions is a guy named Nikisa Badarian. He said, our team has worked closely with all parties to navigate the situation responsibly. While we will not be moving forward with this event, our plan still remains for Jake to headline on Netflix in 2025. Details regarding a new date, location, a new opponent, and additional bouts will be shared as soon as they are finalized. So, Gervonta Davis is out of the fight. Like I said, guys, we honestly should have never had a fight. We should have never had that fight even on the docket, but it was happening. You knew it had potential to be a nightmare. It turned out to be exactly what we...
Gervonta Davis fight has been officially canceled. While the Netflix event will still take place, the main event will feature a new opponent for Jake. Ariel Helwani comments that Netflix made a responsible and ethical decision by dropping Tank from the lineup. He says the streaming platform cannot promote a fighter who is currently facing multiple accusations of misconduct and mistreatment of women. Helwani explains that such controversies could have damaged the reputation of Netflix's first major boxing event. Instead, by exploring alternatives like Ngannou or Garcia, MVP and Netflix aim to maintain the hype without endorsing problematic behavior. The cancellation is a blow to both Tank's career and reputation. As it suggests, major organizations no longer want to be associated with his image until his legal matters are resolved.
10 or so. Most Valuable Promotions, the promotion co-founded by Jake Paul and Nikisa Bedarian, posted this on social media. They posted that they were officially canceling the fight, saying Most Valuable Promotions immediately initiated an investigation. No, I had the wrong one. Okay, I'm reading this one. Most Valuable Promotions and Netflix have announced that Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis, the one I was reading was the one from late last week, originally scheduled for Friday, November 14th at the Kaseya Center in Miami, Florida, will no longer be moving forward. Quote, our team has worked closely with all parties to navigate this situation responsibly, said Nikisa Bedarian, CEO of MVP. While we will not be moving forward with this event, our plan remains for Jake Paul to headline an event on Netflix in 2025. And that is what I'm hearing as well. They want him to fight in December. That is the hope. And they're actively looking for a opponent. More on that in a moment. Details regarding a new date, location, Jake's opponent, and additional bouts will be shared as soon as they are finalized. We thank Netflix, Kaseya Center, Seminole Hard Rock and Hotel and Casino for their partnership. Then there's some information about, fans who purchase tickets. You can see all of this online. I did speak to Nikisa briefly, and I've seen some people say like, hey, and this was his take. Like, I asked him two questions, basically, like, did this have anything to do with the ticket sales? He said this was going to be a very, very successful event for them financially. And the other thing was like, Tank Davis has a checkered past. He had a checkered past when this fight was made. What changed? Well, obviously, 2 incidents, allegations, lawsuit. Since the fight was announced, they at the time felt like this was an opportunity for people to learn about who Tank Davis is, for him to show the world that he was a changed man, all this stuff and more. And that didn't happen, and they felt like they had to cancel the event. For the record, I feel like this was 100% the right call. You can't be a promotion that is so heavily invested in women's boxing and work with a guy who has allegations and lawsuits pending.
Growing question within the boxing community is why Gervonta Davis and his management remain silent regarding the serious allegations made against him. Analysts argue that silence often gives the impression of guilt or avoidance. If Tank truly believes he's innocent, he or his legal representatives should have released a statement addressing the accusations directly. This silence has only fueled public skepticism and caused sponsors to withdraw support. Commentators suggest that Tank's hesitation may be due to ongoing legal processes or advice from his lawyers to avoid media discussions. However, this lack of transparency has damaged his reputation severely. Fans who once supported him are now questioning his integrity, and major networks are distancing themselves. This situation highlights how crucial public image is in the entertainment-driven world of boxing. Even without proof, perception can destroy opportunities, as seen with the canceled Jake Paul fight.
And it's really she said, because as of me recording the video, I haven't even heard Tank or his team respond to these said allegations, right? And some people will say, oh, but he has these allegations in the past. The last time I checked, we have Miranda rights. They say guilty, they say innocent until proven guilty. But we know, especially for black men in America, it's really the opposite. For most people, but definitely black people, right? It's guilty until proven innocent. Like, you have to prove that you didn't do what's being leveraged against. And this is not copping pleas for Gervonta Davis. This is merely the truth, right? These are allegations. And from a business perspective, I understand, and I've told you in the past, companies, big corporations and companies, S-corps and big companies that are worth billions and trillions like Netflix, they are not trying to get their hands dirty. There's no one person that is perhaps big enough for them to ultimately mess up their money and basically allow a snowball effect in what they got going, right? They're not going for that.